Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the EBI Seminar Series on Graduate Student Chronicles. I'm joined today by Jason Porzio. Jason is a research associate at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and is a recent PhD graduate from UC Berkeley. Thank you for joining us, Jason. How are you today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm doing well today, and it's nice to be on the series here. It's a honor, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So
Mhm.
this today we're going to talk a little bit about what steps to take after graduating from grad school. But before we dive into that, can you tell us a little bit about what you studied at UC Berkeley?
Yeah, sure. So I did my undergrad at UC Berkeley too. And then I did my grad as a master's student here, and then I also did my PhD. So I've been at Berkeley for a really long time, right? And as an undergrad, I studied civil and environmental engineering. And originally, I thought I was going to be a structural engineer. And then, kind of towards the end of my undergrad, I realized that maybe that wasn't exactly, what I wanted to be doing. So I did a master's, also in civil and environmental engineering, but more focused on sustainability. So it was in the energy, civil infrastructure, and climate program in civil engineering. So it's a lot more focused on, sustainability and analyses and, just how we like evaluate the pros and cons of different technologies with regards to, the environment, the economic context that it's in, and social context as well. And then after a year break, I ended up, coming back for my PhD in the same program. So yeah, and since then, all my research has been focused on like large scale lithium ion energy storage systems and kind of their applications and the pros and cons with these applications here. So that's been a majority of my study while being at Berkeley here. Yeah.
Seems like a very consistent academic path that you took. So, when you made this transition into grad school, what were your original goals for grad school, and do you think that you met these goals?
Yeah. Great question. So I think kind of like I said, right? At least for the master's program, right? Originally, I think I used this as a way to kind of pivot what my focus was. And I think that's maybe a lot of students who are thinking about grad school don't typically think of like grad school as an opportunity to really change what, field you're working in, right? Like I knew I didn't want to do structural engineering. And I think a 1, 2 years master's is an excellent way to be like, hey, I have this engineering background. I don't love the way I'm applying it. Let me find a different subject that I'm interested in and learn how to apply maybe methods to, something that I'm actually more interested in. So with the master's, I think that's something that's often overlooked. And, with the goal that I had of changing the field that I was working in, I think I, did a great job with that with my master's. Um, with the PhD, it's a little bit more. It's a different story, I'd say. So during my master's, I started getting into research, right? And I realized that it was something that I really enjoyed doing. Um, and I think that I kind of used the PhD as really like I would consider it a career opportunity, right? Like I kind of treated my PhD as a job in a way, where my job is research and getting better at research, right? So over the course of my PhD, I learned a lot. I got hopefully I got good at my job. That's kind of the way I like to think of it. And yeah, then I was able to kind of start this budding research career that I'm in right now. And we'll see how that goes. But as far as like the trajectory that I saw for myself with the PhD, I think it ended up going pretty well, right? I wanted to pursue this research opportunity, see if I liked it, grow as a researcher, and I think the PhD was really a great way to do that. Yeah.
So, I'd assume then that making the transition from a research heavy PhD program into the role as a research associate would be pretty smooth. But how would you say that this transition worked out for you?
Yeah. So it definitely, I think it is relatively natural, right? Where especially because, as you're doing your PhD, you're building all these connections at the institution where you're working, right? So with Berkeley, right, it's great because, you have UC Berkeley and you have Lawrence Berkeley labs that, are working together in a lot of cases, right? So for me, it was natural to find research opportunities after my PhD and continue on as a postdoc or postdoctoral candidate, full name there. But um, I think there was definitely still an adjustment to be had, right? During the PhD, your focus is really, getting out a dissertation or a thesis, and sometimes you publish along the way, right? But really, you're the one doing like all the work and creating a body of research that like is entirely you, really, right? Then as a postdoc, or as a just a research associate in general, right? I think it's less about doing the work yourself, right? And it's more about winning proposals. So like thinking about the future direction of projects, right? And figuring out how to write applications for proposals and start winning money to perform the research that you want to do, right? And then on top of that too, you kind of start shifting a little bit more into like a managerial position. Like now I'm starting to hire master students to help me out with research, right? And that's a new experience for me. So in a way, you kind of move from doing the actual research work to kind of organizing the research work and kind of directing it. And I think, as you progress down a career in research, you're going to shift more and more into that position where you're doing less and less of the actual, day-to-day work, but you're really kind of looking at more of the bigger picture items and steering research in that direction. So getting used to that adjustment, right, is actually it's kind of tricky because my mind has always been thinking about like doing the actual work at my computer, right, and performing the research. But now all of a sudden, I kind of have to like take a step back, and it's changed my day to day, and it's changed the work that I'm expected to do. But at the end of the day, it's not like a huge dramatic shift, right? It's just something that you kind of get used to over time, and it is really a natural progression there. Yeah.
So I think being here in Berkeley, especially with these connections between UC Berkeley and the lab, we have a nice connection that allows you, like you said, to make easy adjustments between the academia and the workforce. But
Yeah.
was there at any point when you were kind of uncertain of where you would go after grad school? And if so, how did you manage that uncertainty?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, that's a sentiment that I felt all the time. And I'd imagine that, probably most PhD students feel that all the time, right? Um, I think that like in general, right, a PhD it's a pretty unique career path, right? So, while you're doing your PhD, your friends, your family, everyone that you know is kind of on a little bit more of a traditional career path, typically in industry or something like that, right? So I think that a lot of the times you're actually kind of feeling some sort of imposter syndrome, maybe. Like, is this really the right thing to be doing? Does this career path actually make sense, right? Um, and I think the reason why I feel that is because, there's so few people really doing this kind of higher degree, right? Um, and I kind of think that it's a feeling that you just kind of you get used to. But also I think it's like something that's worth acknowledging, right? Like it's I think every PhD student has that feeling, and I think that like it's great to talk to your peers about it too, because everybody's kind of feeling that way to some degree. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing a PhD. It's just like a natural response to the nature of the field and how it's set up. Um, but that being said, right, I think that like even though you have those feelings, right, like I said, it doesn't mean that you should not be doing a PhD. And I think like a way to really see if like this is something that's right for you is to just start doing research and see if it's something that you like doing, right? Like when I started doing my research as a master's student, I was immediately pretty engaged in it, and I really enjoyed it, right? And then when it kind of came to the point in time where I had to consider like, do I want to pursue a PhD or do I want to go into industry, right? When I started looking out at the jobs that were available and kind of comparing them against, continuing to do my research, to me, the most appealing option was continuing to do my research. So I think like listening to that, right? and treating a PhD kind of as a career choice, that's a really good way to feel confident in, whether or not you're doing the right thing here for yourself, right? But if you don't love the research that you're doing and you're unsure about it, then like yeah, maybe looking into industry options like is the better call for you. I think, everybody's going to have a different um path that they take. And I think that it's going to be really unique to how they enjoy their research and what they're doing, right? But if you enjoy what you're doing, I'd say just keep on following it, and you'll make it work. Whether that's in industry or in academia here. Yeah.
That's some really great advice in regards to just feeling confident in your choice to go to grad school. I'm curious, do you have any advice for grad students who don't necessarily know what's beyond grad school?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I'm fresh out of grad school, so I think my advice is, it's from the perspective of somebody who's like 6 months out, right? And I was fortunate enough to kind of have the connections to where like I could continue my research pretty seamlessly, right? But I think like as you are doing your PhD, right, it's just important to keep in mind that like if you do want to continue doing research, to like really build those connections with the people around you, right? Whether that's your mentors or just other professors who are around you, right? Or other people in the research field, right? Like we've been saying, right? Berkeley has a lot of close ties to Lawrence Berkeley Labs. And it's really good to keep in touch and like make a good impression on the people who you're working with during your graduate program, right? So that afterwards, if there's an opportunity, maybe you come into mind for them, right? I think that's very much kind of like what happened with me. So obviously, I'm like extremely lucky that we have these connections. But at the same time, right, it's important that as a graduate student, you're aware of the impression that you're making on the people around you. That's not to say that you need to like put a lot of pressure on yourself to like overachieve and outperform, everybody else. Like I don't think grad school needs to be a competitive place, right? I think it's just one where there's a lot of passionate people, and as long as your passion comes through, then I think you'll do fine in your program and after your program as well. Yeah.
That's great to hear. So, for our last question, this is a little bit more of a fun question. If you could go
Mhm.
back in time and tell yourself one thing before you enrolled in grad school, what would that be?
I mean, I think that when I was originally making that choice, I was really conflicted and like stressed out on whether or not I was making the right choice. And I think this is especially true for when I was thinking about my master's program, right? And using it as a chance to like switch my career path really, right? From structural engineering to sustainability and research. And I remember like really, really just kind of freaking myself out and stressing myself out on like, what is the right decision, right? Is this the right decision to be making? And if I make the wrong decision, right, like, what's that going to mean for me, right? And I think I was so fixated on not making the wrong decision, right? So I kind of wish I could just tell myself like back then to like, don't worry about it too much, right? Like at the end of the day, you're going to be okay in whatever career path you choose, right? And if you don't make the right choice or the right choice, immediately, there's going to be other opportunities to kind of change what you're doing and to feel good about what you're doing too. So I think I would just kind of tell myself to like relax, listen to your gut, right? And not take it too seriously. I think we have a tendency to like really put a lot of pressure on ourselves when it comes to like these pivotal decision moments in our lives. But really it's all going to be okay. Like no matter what choice you make, right? I think you're going to end up along the right path as long as you just kind of keep on listening to yourself. So I just tell myself to listen to my gut and take it easy a little bit. Yeah.
That's great advice that honestly anyone can take at any point in their lives.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to, sometimes it's just hard to take a breath and like really step out of the situation and come at it with fresh eyes. But I think it's always kind of the best thing that we can do when we're stressed out about something. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thank you for this conversation. This was very illuminating and I'm sure very helpful for anyone who's watching and maybe considering if grad school is the right decision and their uncertainty regarding what comes after grad school. So, myself and everyone at the EBI, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best in your future years at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. So, thank you again for
Great,
joining
yeah.
us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I'm really honored once again to be here with you all. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for checking out the EBI seminar series on graduate students and their experiences. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more content on graduate programs. Be sure to follow along for future installments or check out our previous series and explore our social media, which are all linked in the description below. Thank you for watching and see you next time.